Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle, Spiritual Matters Thursday. I'm your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, and I'm very excited today for today's topic. We are going to be talking about El Día de los Muertos and Halloween origins and how you are already making the practice relevant in your life. Isn't that something? This is one of the episodes where I get to nerd out. As you know, I am a nerd. and I love the syncretism of putting different traditions and different, um, historical backgrounds and cultural backgrounds together, denoting where the patterns are, where they have similarities, and where they have borrowed, to be polite, from each other. Some people would say downright copied, plagiarized, but that's another sermon for another Sunday. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about the origin of Halloween, and in a lot of Latin American and Caribbean countries in Spanish, which is another colonizer language, is called El Día de los Muertos. So welcome to the Daily Huddle. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am so excited to talk with you and nerd out and be academic and jovial and collegial about this conversation. We had Halloween a couple of nights ago, and in many countries around the world, it is celebrated also as El Día de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead, and in some places, All Saints Day, which we'll get into in a little bit. But before we do that, let's get grounded in this now moment. Rashida, where are you? What are you thankful for?
I am right here, right
Yes.
now, right now. I'm just right here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm thankful for, I am thankful for life itself. Just a new day to my calendar. I am so grateful for that. And with that, I'm out.
Oh, okay. All right. Grateful for the calendar. I love it. So
Uh,
let me see. Where's Chase? Is Chase here? Chase, how are you? And who are you hugging today?
I am blessed beyond measure.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And who am I going to hug today?
Yes.
I'm going to hug my friend Rashida today.
You are? You're gonna see Rashida? I'm jealous.
That's right.
Oh man. Would that all of us were that lucky. Okay, fine. I'll be joyous and thankful with you. Fine.
Oh, wow. We'll give you some Rashida hugs soon. We will.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair
Great to
enough.
see you.
So today we're talking about the origins of Halloween. If you have seen any of these documentaries that have gone around, seasonally, because around this time they put this on so that it's a topical show. Um, Halloween's origins date back all the way to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. It's spelled Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain. And the Celts, who lived about 3,000 years ago, mostly in the area that is now the United Kingdom, France, Ireland, etc., celebrated their new year November 1st, because that day marked the end of summer and the process of, taking all the fruits from the summer, the harvest, and then the official beginning of the dark, cold winter, time of year that's usually associated with human death. Because if you will remember we didn't always have air conditioning and heaters, etc. We were subject to the elements, and so having a cold winter was often associated with human death and human frailty. We got sick, and then we didn't have the medical attentions that we have now, etc., etc. So the Celts believed that on the night before the new year, November 1st, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. And on the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain, when it was believed that the ghost of the dead returned to Earth. And in addition to causing trouble and damaging crops, Celts believed that the otherworldly spirits made it easier for the druids, or the priests of the Celtic tradition, to make predictions about the future. So for a people that were entirely dependent on a volatile natural world, these prophecies were an important source of comfort and information during a very long and dark winter. Because remember, I told you, this is like Northern France, United Kingdom, Ireland, et cetera, et cetera. So that place is like, what do you see? Summer for like 3 weeks. It's the default is cold, right? And so to commemorate that event, Druids would build these huge sacred bonfires where the people would gather to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to their deities. And during that celebration, the Celts would wear costumes, typically consisting of animal heads or skins, to celebrate the kind of crops and the kind of feasts that they wanted to have, right? And so part of how we get the trick-or-treating that we see nowadays, that we give to children to do, is because around the 1st century AD, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of the Celtic territory, and they wanted to combine the two festivals of the one that was Roman origin, which is called Feralia, and it was a date in late October, which also commemorated the passing of the dead and the harvest. And the second was a day to honor Pomona, which was the Roman goddess of fruits and trees. And so the symbol of Pomona is the apple. And so the incorporation of the Pomona, celebration day, and Feralia and Samhain, this is probably where you get the tradition of bobbing for apples that's practiced today in Halloween. And then fast forward to, I want to say the 7th century, around the 7th century, around the 600s. There was a pope. I only know his name in Spanish. El Papa Bonifacio IV. He dedicated a pantheon in Rome to honor all of the Christian martyrs. And so the Catholic Feast of All Martyrs Day was established in the Catholic Church. And then he expanded that to be All Saints Day and moved the observance from May to November. Are you tracking how all of this is like moving together? Right? So by the 9th century, the influence of Christianity had already spread to Celtic lands. And so it blended and eventually supplanted those older Celtic rites. And so you have Hallows Eve, right? The day before All Saints Day, which is October 31st, which coincides with Samhain. And then you have All Saints Day. And then you have the Day of the Dead, All Souls Day, November 2nd. So that whole period from October 31st to November 2nd, which is today, is a time when it was believed that the veil between the spiritual and the earthly realm was thin, the thinnest all year. And here we are. Here we are, candied out, costumed out, decorations out. And as soon as it's out, then all the stores pull that stuff off the shelves, and here comes Christmas. And you have heard me talk about before how when we follow the natural cycles of just nature and the planet, the natural new year is the fall equinox, right? Around September 20th, when the sun is equidistant from the North and the South Pole, and it's on its way down, right? So by the time that we get to November, we're already in the decline, and it culminates with the lowest, shortest daylight of the year, which is December 21st, which is the winter solstice. And the reason why these are called equinoxes and these are called solstices is because these are where the sun is equidistant from the North and South Pole, as I said. This time, the fall equinox on the way down, the spring equinox on its way up. And the solstices are where the sun is at its highest in the summer solstice and at its lowest with the winter solstice, right? So you get it? You get it? We're going into the darkness. It's also a deeply feminine time in Earth. There's not so much activity. It's a time to go within. It's a time to hibernate. It's a time to be quiet. If you notice nature, the leaves are falling. If you're in the northern hemisphere, then the winter's coming and it's time to go inside. It's time to go within. But our culture has it that when nature says sit down and be quiet, our culture is like, no. This is when we get the busiest. Let's feed you sugar with candy. Let's feed you activities with holiday parties and activities and the kids doing this and sports and extracurricular. Da, 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 da. And so we have, after a while, have gotten disconnected from that natural flow of nature and going within. And we think that we're supposed to be going. But nature has its cycles. Life has its cycles. And one of those cycles is to go within, to sit down, to shut up, to be quiet, to rest, to rejuvenate. Don't do nothing. And so, or at least the doingness is within, it's inside, it's not outside, right? Have you ever had an experience where it's like, no matter what I do, I work so hard and I'm trying everything I know how and I'm still not getting results? And you think that you just have to do differently or do more, right? Because the formula for success is do. But what we are learning from and remembering from nature and from some of these ancient traditions is that, no, you get to sit down and you get to be still. And the stillness is part of the accomplishment of whatever that goal is. Because when you go within, you have a deeper connection with source, with divine intelligence. Good morning, Cece. And an opportunity to get some wisdom that wouldn't be available in activity. Some wisdom is only available in contemplation, but you have to be still long enough to contemplate and to have that stuff pulled down, right? So, did you know all that? Did I give you something new today? Did you learn something? Did you remember something? Did anything resonate with you? I want to hear what your traditions are around this time. Maybe if you have children, you took them trick-or-treating. And trick-or-treating itself is, another kind of like, after a while, the Xerox copy gets blurry, right? So it's like the tradition gets a little blurry as well. The offers that the ancient Celtics would give to the deities for thankfulness for the previous harvest and anticipation for the blessings of the oncoming one, then became either honor the ghouls, the ghosts, the spirits, such as the trick, or sacrifice, which is the treat, right? So, what do you think of all this? What are you opening up to? I would love to hear. I even got my Dominican and bookish sweatshirt for you because I just nerded out for the past 10 minutes. Are the candles a gift of spirit? Yeah, well, not so much a gift of spirit, but a reminder that we are now entering the darkness, right? So it's a way to illuminate the inside, given that the outside is getting darker and darker. That's a great question, Laura. Yes, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you so much for this education. I'm from Jamaica and we don't celebrate Halloween. Actually, we think it's devil worship. So when I came here out of curiosity, my sister, my niece and I went to, they have celebration in the village, Halloween party. So we went to this Halloween party, came home, had this experience where we felt like we were being dragged off the bed. So I woke up in the morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I had. This is what I experienced. And my sister said, what? I had the same experience. So I was thinking about it. And I always say, I don't want to be outside late because here they used to throw eggs at people and stuff like that. So, but it so happened that every Halloween, I'm outside at night for whatever reason. I'm caught outside. But I'm looking at that experience we had. Is it from the mind? We having that belief that it is devil worship. It has to do with the dead, the veil, as he said, between the dead. And I was thinking of that was all my mind. It wasn't some ghost following us home, pulling us out the bed. It really had to do with our belief that it's all devil worship. I just wanted to share that. I'm complete. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, you bring up an excellent point, because it is very common among all along human history. When we have not understood something, we have demonized it. And when we want to minimize the authority or the viability of another people, another tradition, then we demonize them too. So a lot of ancient African traditions, Hoodoo, Ifa, Yoruba, et cetera, have also been demonized as this is devil work. What do you mean you're working with your ancestors? You're supposed to only pray to Jesus. And if you don't do that, then you're blaspheming and you're going to hell, et cetera, et cetera. But people have been doing ancestor worship and honoring the elements. It's not worship per se. That's actually a mistranslation, because English is a very limited language. It's more like an honoring of those who went before you. And it goes along with that biblical reference of honor your father and mother so that your days will be long. It's not just your biological mother and father, but it's also your lineage. And so this idea of honoring the elements and honoring ancestry is very popular, but whoever controls the narrative gets to say who's good, who's bad, who should be listened to, and who shouldn't. And so when you are bookish like me, and you learn new things that typically you're like, oh, isn't that supposed to be evil? And then the immediate question that I get after that is, who told me that story? Consider the source. And what's their vested interest in demonizing one story over another? So thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure that experience is not unique to you, Laura. I think we all have one way or the other, we make somebody else's traditions the villain.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see. Florence, you have your hand up too.
Yes. Just to make a point, I remember as a kid, we also in Guyana, we don't celebrate Halloween. So I've never participated in it. And I learned a lot this morning from you. However, one of the things I wanted to say is one of the points you were making about who is saying what. As a child, I was about 11 when one of my teachers in school said, oh, like Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't believe in Jesus. And I was sitting there. My mother is practicing this religion, this with Jehovah's Witnesses. And I said, oh, this teacher, she really doesn't know what she's saying, because Jehovah's Witnesses pray in the name of Jesus, even though they just say Jesus is not God. So then on the flip side of that, at 11, I turned and said in my mind, well, I wonder if some of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses tell us about other religions is really true. So at that time, I decided at that age of 11 that I was going to go investigate what other religions are about, whether it's Muslim, Hindu, whatever, Hinduism, whether it's Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever, I was going to do that. And from that time, then the teachings of the Jehovah's Witnesses were never able to dominate my mind.
I love that.
So I eventually left. So coming for, that's just a point I want to make, because depending on who it's coming from, many times, some things are demonized and other, people, and this happens all in all situations.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, because you're absolutely right. It is it's so common that we, poo-poo something because we either don't understand it or because we have been told it's not worth listening to. So thank you for that. Let's see, who else has something? Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogando.
Yes, absolutely.
Is Rashida. I was so thrilled and have like 4 of my ears listening to the whole story that you gave us. I would not even say story, but the education for math. And I can go back and say the same thing like Laura and Flores, that we didn't celebrate Halloween in Costa Rica, but like and I always say, like from an Indian background, that my grandparents them used to do this tradition. How it came about, don't ask me, because they were like, don't ask, don't tell. And when you are as a little kid, oh, you this is not for kids to know. But I remember my grandfather, for All Saint Day, or for the 1st of November, they used to have a fire ritual. And what was the purpose is that they was preparing themselves for a new beginning. They concentrate and doing this whole deal of preparing the grains for sowing. And so they have this tradition that now that you are giving us the education part of it, it makes sense, because they were preparing the crop, and also they also was prepared also for Christmas, because they used to fatten this pig all through the year, all through the year. So they used to have this bonfire, and for me, it was a fire ritual. And it's funny because they have neighbors come around, and everyone will start to talk about who have the biggest pig and who will serve and who going to share, because some people have pigs, some people have goats, some people have
right.
So they used to start to interact into them, but it was the planning that they do that particular day. So definitely I took away a lot of nuggets from what you tell me this morning. Thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Holly says, I learned about Halloween, the history of it, which is in cults, sadly. We don't celebrate once we found out the truth, and was very disappointed and sad. 2022, we no longer celebrate. We celebrate fall, but not the dark side. So let's speak about the dark side. One of the things that I learned in my graduate studies, as many of you know, I have a PhD in comparative religions, is how systemic and relentless and consistent for thousands of years the commitment to villainize anything that has to do with the feminine has been throughout major religions and our cultures. And so here's what that means. Here's what that looks like on just the practical matters. When people lived out in the cold Caucasus Mountains, they would grow their hair long, and their hair naturally, through a process of evolution, lost some of its coil and became limp, so that it could grow and it could shelter you because you didn't have fur like animals. And women, because you were in charge of making sure that the babies survived, they wanted them to grow long hair. But the men would then cut off their hair as a symbol of sacrifice and as a symbol of masculinity, because the long hair was associated with femininity And to this day, we still look at men with long hair like, what you doing? What you doing? Who you like, etc. Right? Another aspect of it, women tend to be, or the feminine, I should say, is associated with intuition and with a connection to the spiritual and the natural world. In fact, we carry life-giving properties, and we are natural protectors in our bodies, protectors and providers in our bodies. We don't have to be socialized to provide. When we give birth to a child, our body automatically produces food in the way of breast milk. And I want you to try, this is an FAFO warning, try to get a mother in between. You try to get between a mother and her child and see what happens to you. They're natural protectors, right? And so this idea of the feminine ability to multitask, because science has already documented, it's funny, I always call science spirit's petulant younger sister, because a lot of things that spirit's been knowing, science just discovered like 3 minutes ago, and thinks it discovered something. And so this idea that women have much more connection between the right and the left hemisphere of the brain allows them to comprehend things faster, remember things, and multitask, right? But in this society, multitasking is seen as an antithesis to productivity, which is part of the hustle culture. And to be able to oversee multiple things like the earth does. The earth doesn't just produce apple trees. It produces apples and oranges and nuts and fruits and potatoes and nightshades and fruits and flowers and all sorts of things. If the earth was linear, like the masculine impulse is, it would only produce one thing at a time. The best that it can do is produce a certain type of fruit and vegetable one season at a time, but it's still plenty of it. And so when you have a group of people who can bleed without violence and live through it and do it over and over and over and over again every single month for years, if you don't know any better, right? I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about like humanity, right? Tens and hundreds of thousands of years ago. If you don't know any better, you're thinking these people are like, who sent you? Right? You must be from another world. Because also, when you stop bleeding, all of a sudden some other thing pops out. And now we have another one of you or another one of me or whatever, right? They hadn't figured out that it's, well, you get it. This is PG-13 show. So this idea that the dark side is evil has been promulgated by societies and cultures that are interested in suppressing the feminine intuition, connection to nature, connection to the divine, because they want to assert their own authority. They want to control the population. And if you don't see or can't quantify the authority, then it doesn't count. And so, so that's that part. And to your point, Holly, about candies that are filled with toxins. Yeah, this is part of the toxicity of the modern culture of wanting to capitalize and weaponize our weaknesses, our greeds, our addictions, etc. So I totally hear you on that. Laura asks, is that where circumcision came from? Trying to mimic women's bleeding? I don't think that's where it came from, but I could see the correlation. I'd have to do more research on that, but that's a great point. I had not put those two together. But if you think about just how human beings move throughout our lives, the only time that a human being bleeds without suffering or incurring violence is a woman's cycle. Everything else is an injury. It's, a wound. It's violence perpetuated on you, or you perpetuating violence on somebody else, etc. It's never just, just happens. So that shedding of the uterine wall is also a way that it kind of correlates to just the falling leaves and getting ready for the darkness so that something else can rise again. And so the bleeding cycle for a woman is correlating, of course, with the winter, with the new moon, and then ovulation with springtime. But again, another sermon for another Sunday. You guys, you let me run my mouth and we'll be here forever. So anything else? Questions, comments, ahas, mind blown moments, emojis. Are we good? Okay. All right, fantastic. So thank you everybody for being here. Remember, of course, to love generously. Hallie wants to know who's on Instagram. Would love to share something there. Make sure that you put your Instagram handle on the chat so that you guys can follow each other. We are, of course, a part of our own community, so it's great to stay connected. Remember to love, live, laugh, stress less, exercise more, get yourself at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, eat more plant-based, move your tail feather. Remember that twerking is a Kundalini raising activity. And of course, audit your assumptions. Always check yourself before you wreck yourself. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We love you. See you next time.
One love, guys. One love.
One love.
Love you all.